Hey everybody, welcome to the Atypical Life YouTube channel, and today I'm going to be bringing a bit more of an informative video than I usually do. I would usually talk about Doctor Who and other things on this channel, general media industry, but today I'm going to be talking about education. Now, to a lot of people that means a lot of different things, but over the past year it has meant isolation, it has meant increasingly stressful deadlines, and it has meant a lot of wilderness for the tutors and teachers at all these institutions. So today I'm going to be speaking to a bunch of students, and I'm going to find out what they have thought about the lockdown and what they felt about university during that time. But I'm not going to talk to you today for my usual means. No, I'm going to be talking to you how I usually would during the pandemic. Hi everybody, and let me tell you a little bit about my time during the pandemic. So first and foremost, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the course you were doing and where you've been studying, if you like?
Yeah, so my name's Abby Delaney. I'm currently studying to be a nurse down in UEA, which is the University of East Anglia down in Norfolk.
Fantastic stuff. And you have been studying over the past year and a half. You've been studying a lot longer than that. I know this fact, but in the past year and a half, you have been there whilst a global pandemic has hit. And well, since you've been studying for quite a while, I guess you know more prevalently than a lot of us. How has that affected you, and how did it start for you? What was the turnover like when lockdown began, and how did that affect your learning at that first sort of point in around February, March time last year, I guess?
So our course usually is 50-50 split. 50% is physically in uni with lectures, seminars, all the normal stuff.
Yep.
And then 50% is on placement in the hospitals. However, when lockdown happened, we'd just finished a placement block, so we were supposed to be on theory, but everything just kind of got stopped. They kind of floundered a little bit at first. I think it was very random. People didn't really know what they were doing, didn't know how they were going to sort it out. And then we've got Blackboard Collaborate, which is where we ended up having pictures. A lot of them were live, but then we had some random ones that were pre-recorded. The pre-recorded ones were a bit useless because you couldn't ask any questions, and it was just a lot of information coming at you. But the live lectures were just as good as normal lectures. I felt like you actually had a lot more interaction by having the live lectures, as opposed to if we sat in a big lecture theatre and people were sat at the back playing on the phones or whatever.
Exactly.
With a placement block, that kind of got pushed back as far as it possibly could, to try and prevent us going in dealing with the pandemic. But then when it couldn't be put off anymore, we just kind of got thrown in. A lot of us ended up on COVID wards. It was just kind of, you could opt in or you could opt out. So you could choose to go for the placement, or if you opted out, that meant you'd end up having to do the placement at a different time. So it could mean that you had to intercalate during a lower year. But if you had medical issues or stuff like that, it was just tough. You would have had to intercalate. But then that brought up other issues, because a year later, it's still a problem.
Of course, I can imagine.
I've had friends that I started out with who are now 2 years behind because they haven't been able to go out on placement, and it's really screwed them over essentially. But there's nothing much they could have done about it. It was tough. You've got to look after yourself, got to make sure that they're healthy. But yeah, being on placement was probably the biggest difference. We didn't get a lot of support, unfortunately, from the uni. It was kind of like, your placement's due now, and it was quite daunting, quite frightening being in those situations. Thankfully, down in Norfolk at one point we were really, really lucky, and we didn't have very many COVID patients. But it was really difficult, and we didn't have a lot of support from the universities. I think they were struggling as well, trying to figure out what the hell they were doing.
And I was going to say, none of the other people I've interviewed have had that like first-hand everyone's been affected by COVID, of course, but you guys were there in wards, and you guys were the front line of it,
Yeah,
and that was actually part of your education. I can only imagine what that was like, you know.
yeah. And this is gonna turn vaguely political, and I do apologize.
Go right for it.
But but so I had a friend of mine, a colleague of mine, pass away, unfortunately. Her name was Estrella, and she worked in A&E, and unfortunately ended up in ITU, and she did pass away. So we had all these student nurses. She was a qualified nurse, but that doesn't make it any less of a problem. Had all these student nurses going onto these wards, risking their lives, essentially. I know that sounds a bit dramatic, but it's evidently true. Risking their lives, and we got absolutely no recognition for it. We did at one point get a 12-week paid placement, but that only lasted for 12 weeks, and we were out on placement for 24 weeks. And it all just went a bit pear-shaped, really. It just wasn't, you're literally going out there putting your life on the line, and you didn't get any support or recognition or help, and it was draining mentally as well.
Of course.
Like, although you're doing the 12-hour shifts, but you're having to put all this PPE on, and it's just exhausting. My partner ended up having COVID. He works on the ambulances, and he ended up in hospital with it. He was really poorly, ended up on oxygen and whatever. And it's just, obviously, you're going to do a course, and we know what we're signing up for, but we didn't sign up for a pandemic.
Yeah, no, of course.
And it's been really difficult dealing with that side of things. And as I said, the uni have been good to an extent, because it was brand new for them, and I completely understand that. It's been really difficult getting the adequate levels of support. There've been some really good lecturers that have like checked in on us and messaged quite often, and we have individual tutors as well who look after like 8 or 10 students. Right. And my tutor's been exceptional, but then I have a friend whose tutor has been absolutely useless and hasn't spoken to her at all the whole time.
Wow.
Just disappeared after years. Yeah. So it's been really difficult in that sense.
There's obviously different levels in different unis, and there's different levels of how much class time was important to what you were doing, you know. And have you felt massively affected by the loss of that classroom time? Have you felt hard done by it? How have you?
To a certain extent, yeah. So we have clinical sessions as well. Right. So we're learning how to like put a cannula in, and this was new to the course. You were going to learn how to put a cannula in, and there's something called venipuncture, which is where you draw bloods. Right. And we had a few skills sessions coming up, and we were supposed to be learning how to do airways, so intubation. Right. But unfortunately, because of COVID, we haven't been able to do any of them. So we're now going to be going in qualified, not having certain skills that we should have had. So I think that's been the biggest thing. With regards to just the normal generic lectures, it hasn't really affected us that. They've been pretty much the same content. So it's not really been, that's not been a big deal, thankfully.
That's at least good to hear, right? Because again, other people I've spoken to, they were 100% in, and that was sort of their bread and butter of it, and this just knocked them off the face of the earth, basically. And yeah, there are so many different courses that have been hit so hard, but again, health is so linked to what is wrong right now, I guess. So, like, again, from the uni, have you felt any particular support for that course? Have you felt any particular importance placed on it? Anything of this nature? You know, any specific help?
Not really. So, as I said, once we were in placement, it was kind of like you're their problem. They didn't really check in on us whilst we were on placement very much. We do have some good clinical educators who are kind of like the link between placement and uni, and they were brilliant. They come around and check on you a few times. We had one directly on my ward at all times, and he was fantastic for checking in, making sure we felt supported and stuff. But from the uni directly, no, we didn't really have any kind of input in that way. Yeah.
Wow.
Not really.
Yeah, that's tough to take, but I guess then, all in all, this past year has clearly been very tricky, and been very challenging for us all. Can I ask how long have you got left on your? Is this your final year? Right.
I've got
So,
4 weeks left.
oh my days. So you're not going to see you're not going to see the classrooms return then, or anything like that. This will be.
We go in every Friday.
You do now, do you? Great.
Yeah.
No, because I usually like to round this up by asking, like, how do you think it's going to be come September? How what's going to be going on when things go back? But
So we've managed to go into back into uni
Yeah.
for our last bit of clinical, and we've been instructed to take the LFTs, the little tests. I don't know
Right.
if they're all over, or if that's just because we're in placement or what. But we've been taking 2 LFTs a week. And they've obviously maintained the social distancing, so we're having like seminars, but in lecture theatres, which are obviously massive.
Yeah.
And we've just kind of been trying to maintain social distancing, not really getting the content has been the same, and we're doing the same seminars as we normally would have. But yeah, it's just trying to maintain that kind of thing and lower the risk. And if, God forbid, one of us were to come back positive, our bubble would have to isolate for 2 weeks, which then would practically be finished.
Yeah. That must be a difficult thing to think about.
It's a little bit daunting, especially since we're doing face-to-face presentations at the moment. So in our little breakout groups, we're having to then do presentations, and I don't know how that would be online if we were to isolate, unfortunately. So we'll cross that bridge when
I only wish you all the best of luck in that, really. There's again, I don't think anyone could be described as more frontline in an academic sense than you guys. So personally, I just want to give like my support to you guys and say you've done a great job, etc. And hopefully unis will thank you in some way at some point. So first and foremost, would you like to tell everybody your name and what you've been studying in the past year and a bit?
Yeah, my name's Jack Clark. I studied media production at undergrad. BA Honours, did that for 3 years. Currently doing my master's degree in film production management, and that's all for uni so far. And I've previously studied with Josh here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But in the past year, we've both been still doing similar stuff in that we've both been on master's courses, but we've both been doing them during this global pandemic. How has that been for you?
Well, I'll kind of start off just like basically saying the story of it, really. So I was finishing my undergrad. I was in the final year. We had 2 projects. One was my final major project. Then I chose to do a dissertation. The dissertation can be done from home. That's all good. But the final major project was meant to be a big commercial client down at Media City. And it would have been really, really good to just get down there and do something whilst we have the time, and then leave uni with something under your belt and that. COVID came out of nowhere. I mean, it's funny enough, I was actually working on pre-production for a documentary about how Brexit would affect the industry up the northwest and in England, because it's had a massive effect on the industry so far. And would you know, an even bigger thing that has affected the industry comes, surprise, surprise, affects my way. So yeah, it was tough for like the first month of core lockdown. Like everything shut down basically, as you know. And like I was penned to do some commercial work in April, and I still was working on a feature film. I had a lot in my plate really, and all of it just kind of just went like the doors were closed and I couldn't open them no matter how hard I shake the handle. So it was really, really tough to start with. It was really, really tough. But I think it's easy to say because it's been tough for everybody, especially in our industry. And it's been really tough.
I guess then, how quickly was that shutdown for you? Like, I'm speaking to a lot of people, it was just like that. I know in my own experience, I was in on a Wednesday and they were the unis were closed on a Thursday, something like that. Like it was a very quick turnaround. How was it for you?
Yeah, no, you're pretty much spot on there, really. I had a meeting with my tutor, and basically it was just to discuss how can I move forward with my project. So I was worried about my grade at the time. I'm like, because I had a bunch of these things I had to go to as part of my project, and they all got cancelled as events were being cancelled here and there
Yeah.
without hesitation, without notification. And they were like, right, this is such a hard situation to sort of plan for and to respond to. And we had one big session as a group in the class. This
Yep.
was early stages, and then I think it was like maybe 3-4 days later or something like that. We were locked
Yep.
down. Everything
Oh
was
my.
closed off, and then it spinned out a bit there. To be honest, I mean, I had a spell of just depression. I think a lot of people did a spell of just hopelessness, really, where you're like,
100.
I've
Yeah.
spent 5 years. This has been my passion. This is exactly what I want to do, and it's like some unseen forces just come in and just gone. Nope, you're not having that. Took all the eggs from the basket, really. But I don't know. But I'll throw it at you. I mean, I'll throw it back at you. I mean, when it hit you first, what was your response like, and how did you sort of overcome it? And then you can throw it back at me if you want.
Sure. So what I was doing education wise, I was halfway through making a short film that required me to go back and forth between Manchester and Liverpool for the filming. And at first it was difficult, not gonna lie. It looked like most of our class was gonna fail because there hadn't really been a precedent for this. You know, you don't get exemption for a plague hitting, let's say, do you? You know. So it looked for the most part like it was going to go down a very bad river, let's say. Luckily, I was able to rewrite it as like a vlog style thing. So I just told an actor, film this in your house, here are the lines. And I was able to make something. But outside of that, our entire year group were meant to go on a trip to New York the week that lockdown began. So
yeah.
So
that's a big door being closed there.
100%. I mean, I think I've talked to you before about how limited it's been for me to actually leave the country in the past, just due to my family's financial background and what have you. And this really was like my first big chance to go to America, for instance. And considering what's gone on there since, maybe it's better I didn't, but at the time it looked like a really nice opportunity, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, I remember when when it hit and they had this spell where it was kind of like stagnating. Then I kind of had like a wake up call because I still managed to get work done for my feature film. So what we did is response to it. So we said, right, what can we do with what we've got, basically with the conditions that we're under. And we started just filming around Manchester just as a 2-person crew, just filming like general view shots and wide shots of the city because it was completely desolate in terms of people and population. So now was the time. It was like 28 days later. So we just was doing that. And then whether we used some of the shots or not, we just wanted to get them because we had some we needed for the film anyway, but we were going to get them. And that kept me kind of going slowly. And then I hit the gear and I'm like, I kind of had an epiphany where I'm like, in all honesty, it's not, this pandemic is not really such a negative anymore for my career. And I think for other people's careers, because you may have planned something, you may have done something, and it's all gone, and you can't do it in that way anymore. But I think the testament to your skill and your passion is if you can adapt beyond it, and you can adapt past it. So that's what Charles Darwin kind of said when I'm paraphrasing his quote when he said basically it's not the strongest of species that survive or the most intelligent, but those that are most willing to change.
Yes.
And that's kind of what I've done. I mean, I started making my own short films at home. I was doing online courses. I honed my photography, and that's now got recognition in magazines because I did a piece in response to lockdown, which was an abstract self-portrait photography piece, which did quite well, and I've won a photography award quite recently as well in relation to that. So, I mean, people look at me and they've been going a lot, and they've been going, "How are you still doing this? I'm still recovering from lockdown." I'm like, if you listen to me, you can do it. You've just got to get your head out of that zone that you've put it into, that like smoke and fire, douse it a little bit and then get yourself in, like, just go, right, I can't do it like this, but how can I do it instead? And you
Yep.
really will you'll upskill yourself, because
Mm.
people, that makes you a problem solver. This is the biggest problem to face the industry for my lifetime.
Oh yeah.
So if you can solve it and find a way to still work, then hats off to you, really. You'll go far. And that's my mindset currently approaching it, really, to be honest with you.
Oh, completely. And a quick side point is that I think I'm definitely not on the same level, clearly, but I've got the most done media-wise in the past year than I have anywhere else. You know, like any other time, I haven't been. It's created it's created a motivation for me in a weird way. When there's nothing else to do, you fall back on your passions, and media is a passion for a lot of people, not just me and you. And I feel like so many people have turned to photography, have turned to video making, editing, voiceover work, however you channel that creativity, even in a time when maybe the country or the government doesn't seem to care about that. I think the people in this country and many other countries really care about it right now. And that does make me happy, you know?
Yeah, no. I mean, you get the people, but once you believe in it yourself, then you'll join the rest of the flock that also believe in it.
Yeah.
And, you're not suffering alone, because, the thing is, now everybody has a sort of shared suffering in a sense. Because we've all experienced the pandemic. It's not like a unique thing. It's not like, when you've experienced depression and somebody else hasn't, so they don't understand you. Everybody understands the pandemic. So you're not really alone in your sort of suffering and the way you've been dealing with it. And especially in this industry, everybody suffered in this industry. As a student, even, everybody suffered as a student from the home learning aspect. How do you home learn for a course like this? It's not been fantastic, but at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, you've got to just, like, adapt to it, and then just, take the hits, take the hits where they come worse, but then pick yourself back up and go, right, I'm not going to give up. These stairs may seem really long, but everything has an exit, Everything has a point where you have to reach it. Everything has a top, so you can reach it eventually, no matter what hurdles come your way. That's filmmaking in essence, and especially independent level, is hurdles upon hurdles. David Lynch, the very famous filmmaker that is quite a household name, his first film was Eraserhead, and he spent like 5 years making that because he kept running out of money. He kept having problems with family. All these people telling him, you can't do it, you can't do it. The pandemic's no different to that. The pandemic is effectively just a giant voice saying, you can't work, you can't do anything, stop it right now. And if you just say, well, I'm going to continue to do it, you can shout all you want, mate. But that's the mindset I think everybody should have regarding, especially in this industry, because there's so many people that are stagnating or giving up. And it's really sad to see, but you can only pick yourself up, really, to be honest.
Again, a lot of this pandemic is a micro, narrative of what the media industry is anyway. Your resources will go sometimes, or you will hit these brick walls, you will hit these hurdles. It's how you deal with those hurdles that defines you as a filmmaker, defines you as a creative, defines you in your passion, right?
Yeah, well, I think even just with my students, not just our caliber, but just any student studying any course, the best course of action for me is, I'd say, if you really want something, then the limitations of the online learning or anything like that won't stop you from getting it. It may suck. It may be hard to get out of bed to open your laptop lid because it's not very exciting. But, if you really want something, then you're going to push yourself to get it. And, I found it when I was doing online learning. It was a more comfortable environment, actually. I didn't have to rush myself out in the morning, get to a lecture hall. I've done physical lectures again, and it was a very strange reverse Uno card, really, because it was like I'd gotten used to online lectures and they were comfortable, and then went back to physical, and I'm like, this is really socially awkward and terrible. When it was the opposite before, doing it online was socially awkward and terrible. It just shows you how, that kind of shows you in a sense how we adapt, really.
Yeah, 100%.
Without even realising it, so.
Oh, yeah. I think in about 6 months' time, you'll got used to physical again, right? But I was about to completely ask about how did they ease you back in? Because I know you, as an institution, have been able to go back in. Unfortunately, where I've been, that opportunity never actually came, and I'm waiting until September now.
Well, they kind of just like you still had the social distance, you had the mask and stuff, so there was still the air of it's present. It's not normal. It's not the same. It wasn't as comfortable, and for me, it was different in the sense of it was different in the sense that I started my MA course
Yeah.
well, not post pandemic, but post my undergrad during the pandemic,
Yeah.
and I hadn't met a single one of my peers in person. So, and we'd been together
Yeah.
for like a year, and that is crazy to
It's
what
weird,
most people
isn't
would
it?
consider. So then we're all in physical, and we're like, I know you, but I also don't know you. You know, that
Yeah.
kind of vibe was going around.
100.
They basically just like the first two sessions were just like kind of just like, yep, we're just gonna take it easy, a couple of PowerPoints, slow lessons.
Hmm.
We had a whole canteen for us during the break, and it was just like basically just like, just take it slow. Really, don't go too fast. And
Yeah.
they started doing a couple of group tasks, and like they were awkward at first, but in the same way online was awkward at first. It's kind
Yeah.
of just like after about 4 sessions, your brain goes right back to physical, and then you just kind of used to it because I've done physical work again now, so it's like I'm kind
Yeah.
of my mind's in both places. It could switch at any point, and I'm kind of ready for it now
Hmm.
because I've been in both places. So
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think I'll probably be in that same boat when I get there. I'm at first when I realized we'll be going back in September, I was dreading it in the same sense when I found out classes were going to be online, I was dreading it. I think a lot of people have that before anyway. I think there is a fear of the unknown about a lot of this.
yeah, no. Well, that's it. It's like if you don't know, bloody hell, my words, then getting lost. If you don't know something, then don't let it bother you.
Yeah.
It's like if I really wanted to, I could sit there every day going, "What's the meaning of life? I don't know it. Oh God, you know." There's some questions or there's some things you can't foresee, you can't answer. But if you just let them, you can't let them drag you down like a cinder block. You've just got to
Yeah.
keep rolling forward, rolling forward, rolling forward with it. Really, this pandemic has shown that it doesn't matter where you are, what you're doing, anything can happen. And if anything can happen, do anything you want.
There you go.
Basically, is what I say. It's absurd.
Yeah.
Life today is very absurd, very
Mhm.
crazy. You look at the news, you go, chicken crossed the road, shot Matt Hancock. That's a believable article. That's how
Yeah.
crazy the world is. So, if the world's crazy, then
Mm.
do whatever you want. I live with a mindset of, it's absurd existence. So I'll do whatever I want. I'll live how I want because
Mm.
I'm not spiritual in the way that I believe that we have. This is off point, kind of, but
Go
I'm
on.
not spiritual in the way that I believe that we have an afterlife. So to me, there's only one life. So I'd say no matter what happens, don't waste it. Because as far as we are aware, there's one existence, one life,
Yeah.
which is this right now. What this dialogue we're having is my one life, your one life. So
Yeah.
don't waste it, basically, and don't let something drag you down.
Absolutely. And to veer ever so slightly off again, you and I are recording this interview on Zoom. That's become massive over the course of the pandemic. Do you think there's still a place for it when we go back into classes? Do you think it will still be used as a tool? How useful do you think it will be in the future?
I think there's like a weird mix of like there's the people that really just want it to go back to normal because they miss the uni lifestyle or they want the uni lifestyle because they've yearned for it and they're just going into uni.
Yeah.
And there's a certain amount of people who are actually kind of like enjoying and appreciating the actual use of Zoom and the easiness of Zoom, especially teachers, well,
Yeah.
let's say half teachers or lecturers, because it's like you can do it from the comfort of your own home, you can do it from behind the computer screen, you don't have to make care of your appearance, you don't even have to have your camera on in a lot of cases. The engagement might be lesser, but I still think it's a comfortable and useful tool to conduct sort of education. I mean, I've done Zoom masterclasses, I've done stuff for the Prince's Trust, and I've learned a lot from them. I've actually enjoyed them quite a fair bit in terms of the online classes, and I think the access and influx of online classes has made it far more accessible for just not just students or former students or people that have never studied, but for anybody to actually learn something.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic to me because I'm all for education for the masses. I think it's much desired, not just for students like me, but for everybody. And this online course influx has allowed that. So I think it's a great takeaway from it. And I think Zoom isn't going anywhere anytime soon, because there's a lot of stuff that I still do use in Zoom. I still do meetings with people using Zoom. I've done job interviews on Zoom. It's not all physical just yet. I'd say it's about 40% physical so far, and the rest of it's just online, comfort your own home, or Zoom. So,
oh yeah, I think one of the massive advantages of Zoom, honestly, for international students, you can study anywhere in the world in theory now, and it doesn't matter where you are.
Yeah.
For another, and I've personally felt this a lot in the past year, is the sheer diversity in guest lecturers we can get in. So I had someone from Iceland, I think, or somewhere like that, making one of the first TV shows to be made out of that country in quite a while.
What was he the manager?
No.
Was it the Iceland in Birkenhead, was it? Had the manager of Birkenhead, Iceland come in.
Ugh.
Go on, carry on.
But no, so he was making a TV show. It was like one of the first to be made there in quite a long time, like purely made there, like a pure Icelandic production, I think it was. And we would have never got that interaction if the pandemic had never happened. We'd have never been able to get these lectures. I think we had someone from Germany, we had someone from Finland, I think, as well. So we had all these people who come from different areas of media to talk to us about how the industry is all over the world. And I don't think any of that would have been possible if things had gone as normal, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's accessibility to connect to people, whereas you wouldn't have been able to before. Yeah. And I mean, a good thing for our industry is there's a thing called cold emailing, where you obviously send an email out as an expression of interest, like, hello, my name is blah, blah, have you got any jobs, blah, blah, whatever. That's become more of a friendly thing, because a lot of people are now checking their emails and using their emails far more frequently than they did before. Yeah. Because there's still a lot of remote working and working from home. So there's no longer, to me at least, it's no longer that fear of just sending an email out to somebody and fearing that they'll read it and they'll shout at you. But, you know, there's actually more a chance that they'll read it and be a bit more understanding, and then they might even get back to you. I mean, I've had a couple of cold emails back now. From people like that have gone, oh, thanks for your email. That's really great, blah, blah, you know. And before I might not have got that, or I might have been too scared to do it, but just doing it remotely is, I think, allowed that. And it's great for us or other people that might want to get something but don't have the necessary loops or contacts or experience to get it, but then they can gain it just via that. I think it's great.
Well, again, not on the same level, but just take a look at my channel. Just had the pandemic never happened, I'd have never been able to interview any of those people. None of them would. Most of them who I've been interviewing told me themselves they hadn't really used Zoom before, they hadn't used webcams, they weren't really computer savvy. You know, they'd have never accepted any of those interviews, and yet a lot of them had been, had been doing them like every single day for a month, let's say, just because of the advent of Zoom and pandemic and what have you. So there's a lot more business going on, I think, like person-to-person business going on during this past year as well. I don't know if I know that's what you've just touched on, but would you say that's a general thing about the industry?
Yeah. I mean, I'd say I definitely. I mean, I touched on it there just with cold emailing. But, you know, I mean, I've had interviews on Zoom, person to person. I've spoke to people I wouldn't have spoken to before on Zoom. I've done online group sessions on Zoom. I've actually given lectures myself on Zoom as a guest. And that was quite fun, actually, because I had to share the PowerPoint and go through it, and then I had my camera in the car, and I was like, hello, this is the presentation. I am blah, blah. And I thought that was actually quite fun, because it's a really comfortable way of delivering a presentation and, conducting your work. So I'd say, it's changed the landscape, but I don't think it's changed in a negative way in that sense, really, to be honest.
I have a feeling, again, maybe I'm veering off a bit, but you can bring me back if I am. I think you're going to see a lot of people who apply to be teachers, let's say now at the Open University or places like that, where I feel like once this is over, they'll all be online and they'll all still be over Zoom, etc. Because I think it is just more comfortable for some people. And that can only be seen as a good thing. The more people you get in education, even the shy people, the better.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like I said, like I sort of said before. I mean, with the influx of online courses, like stuff with screen skills, the
Mm.
amount of courses you can apply for,
Yeah,
and usually you can get on. The Prince's Trust have done so many. Like I've
yeah,
done about three with the Prince's Trust now, and you get a certificate at the end of it that's actually accredited.
yeah.
So, and you'd meet people, and they do it comfortably, and you learn in a way that suits you. You don't just go, right, you've got to put your camera on now, put it on now.
Yeah.
They don't do anything like that. Whereas in a physical learning environment, it can be like that sometimes, where it's like, right, what's the answer? And then you kind of
Mm.
say, like, oh, just like pooping your pants in your seat.
We all been there.
Open university wise, yeah, I mean, I'm all for education. The internet's a great tool to learn anything, but it's not a tool for granted. And I think the pandemic has taught you that the internet has been taken for granted before, and there's so much more to it than what we kind of use it for
Yeah,
in the palm of our hands, which is usually just doom scrolling down social media, maybe ringing or texting your mates.
yeah.
No, it's far more than that. It's far more than
So
that.
much
You've
more.
got Zoom, you've got a whole library of reading education. Everything's on the internet, really.
Yeah.
And it's time everybody learned how to use everything on the internet.
And if you're
Properly.
at any institution, you and I can. I guess it's a plug, but people should probably know this already. You have online library resources. You have all kinds you can do. Just from your university's website, your college's website. There's so many resources out there. There's Google Scholar. There's am I forgetting the other one? Bloody hell! There's loads of sources of knowledge just on the internet alone. Things you don't have to pay for,
Yeah.
things you can pay for. You can get Skillshare you mentioned and things like that.
Yeah. No, I mean, Udemy, Skillshare, LinkedIn, LinkedIn Learning, all sorts that you can get access to now. A lot of them are put, whereas before they might have gone, right, 100 quid
Yeah.
100 quid get for that. Whereas now they're going like either affordable or free.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way I found it, which is really good actually. Because if there's something that you didn't know before and you kind of wanted to learn it, now you can do it more comfortably, I'd say. In the comfort of your own home. You don't have to go to like some night classes or find a session in your area or try and find some sort of private tuition or something along those lines. You can find a way to learn it in some sort of open, friendly teaching environment online on Zoom or Teams or whatever it is that you can kind of use.
Oh, absolutely. Like yeah, I don't really know how to wind this up other than just taking it back to the whole idea of things are starting to get more normal in classrooms and starting to get back to the way they were. And again, a lot of people I've spoken to have only told me about the negatives of it, and have only talked to me about how limiting it's been. So it's been really refreshing to hear someone say, no, there is a way to look at this in a positive light. There is a way to get around this, and there is a way to make the most of it,
Yeah, I mean, you can look at it in face value and go, it's a mental health explosion.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, I'm no different to it. I've had my depressive spell, for about a month when it happened, but like I said before briefly, I've got one life, and if I'm going to spend it moping around, like waiting for some janitor to come and sweep the pandemic away, then I'm not going to live a fulfilling life. I'm not going to live a proper life, am I? So I kind of go, right, this is a situation. What can I do? Can't do anything right. What can I do in the future? What can I do this way? Is there anything I can do here? What can I do underneath? Don't look at it forward. Look to the left. Look to the right. Look above it. Look below it. Look. Yep. There's so many different directions you can look. There's not just one set for everything. If there was, then there'd be no other options. There'd be just that. You go to a menu at a restaurant. It's just like, oh, we've only got burger today. Is there anything else you want? No, just burger.
Just burger.
There's loads of different options. So don't limit yourself. Don't let it limit you. This pandemic, to sum up, kick it in the dick. That's all you got to do. Look at it, kick it in the dick, and go, right, moving around you. You can suffer on the floor, you mate. We're all suffering. Get forward.
Yeah.
Just keep working. You keep working. Eventually, the fruit will pay off.
Oh yeah.
To be honest, eventually it really will.
Exactly that, man. Exactly. I couldn't have put it better myself. thank you for your time on this, by the way. I know that you've got a lot going on at the minute, and you've been really articulate on this. And yeah, thank you so much.
No, thank you. It's always a pleasure anytime.
So first and foremost, could you please tell me, firstly, who you are? I know who you are, but they need to know who you are, and what you've been studying and or teaching.
Okay, so my name is Jessica Sharp. I have been in the past year completing my PGCE postgraduate degree, so I can become a teacher for media studies, hopefully, but I do have that qualification to be a teacher now, so that's nice.
Woo! We get a woo for you first. Great stuff. So, in that time, you picked the very best time, I'm sure you'll agree, to do a...
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. So...
Couldn't have picked a better time.
So, in this COVID time, and the time of distance learning at home, doing everything via Zoom, this wonderful app, how has that been for you personally? Firstly, on a learning level, and then on a teaching level, how has it been?
On a learning level, I've struggled with it. I've struggled connecting with like the class and connecting with the subjects and what we've actually been learning. I'm a very practical learner. So first of all, changing to a very like coursework heavy course was a big, massive nightmare for me. And then added the fact of that I do obviously have people around you in the group chats and stuff like that, but it's not the same as them being in the classroom with you, where you sort of panic together.
Exactly.
It's a lot of difference. As a teacher, it was challenging. It was interesting because like you get all like this very basic, this is how we've done it for years, and now I want you to adapt this to an online environment, and finding ways to keep people interested in it. Like it's kind of double-ended, because like the same people I'm trying to keep interested when I'm not interested in my own thing. It's like I understand the situation, but it obviously encourages you to be a bit more creative with presentations and getting them connected and using different apps and software. So that's been a challenge, but it was fun. It worked out eventually.
Oh, fantastic. I'm very glad to hear it. But I will say that's probably the biggest baptism of fire you're ever going to get. And you've got through it. So
Exactly. It's like, what else have you got to throw at me now? I think I'm ready for everything else. I don't think anything will be worse than last year.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed anyway. I don't think I can do it anymore.
That's exactly it. And we were just talking very briefly before coming on camera here about how that actually affected you getting your degree. You seem to think it was slightly an easier time to get it, if that makes sense. Would you like to explain what that means?
Oh yeah, no, I think when I was getting the degree, it just feels like you didn't deserve it to a sense, and obviously you deserved you put all the work in, but especially last year and the year before when we were doing the media degree, we had like this big elaborate plan for the final film, and then it just fell through, and then you had to put together like something that you just didn't like, didn't feel proud of, and it sucked. It's like you spend the last 3 years waiting for this degree and waiting for your big moment to show that one big thing, and then it got took away because just no one was prepared for it, and it was so frustrating at the time. And it's the same now. Like it's ended. You get like the qualification, and because of like graduation and stuff like that, it sounds shallow, but you want a celebration. You want that sort of like, this is it. You want the end mark. You've done this. Well done. Be proud of yourself. And then obviously because of everything going on, it's just not possible, which is really sad.
Yeah, I think some moments in life you're allowed to let your ego take over how you feel, and this is one of them. You've worked hard for years.
Yeah.
You've been on this course for a very, very long time. We're talking about media here, of course. For the people watching, we were actually on the same course for a short amount of time, and we definitely deserve to have that moment. I was speaking with another one of our tutors actually, where we were talking about end of year shows and things like that, and we didn't get to do any of it. You know, there was a lot promised about that latter end of the year, and unfortunately, it was quite demoralising to see it not materialise.
It was just, It's hard though, because like you're trying to stay positive and you want to sound like self-centered, but at the same time you've spent a long time on this. This is something you should be proud of. This is something you want to be proud of, and to come out of it feeling like I was like, what was the point?
Yeah, exactly that. But as we say, as the year, a lot of the message of this is like, as the year's gone on, it's not gotten easier, but we're more used to it by the end, and we're learning to move with it, and hopefully move towards getting back into classes soon. But I must ask about Zoom, this very fun app that we're recording on right now. How have you found the app itself, and how have you found that as a learning resource, I guess, if you've been using it?
We've been like we've a mixture of using this and using Microsoft Teams, and I will give them a bit of praise, because they've very quickly adapted and changed so many different things about that to suit classrooms and to suit offices and stuff like that. So praise to them on that, because no one was prepared for it, and to have this so much pressure and this much activity on the site, it's been a long idea that they've been able to have feedback and act on that so quickly. It's been, a real blessing. It's been a real hand. Just like something simple as like having like different like emojis or different backgrounds to sort of keep spirits up and stuff like that. It's so small on the scale of things, but like, do you know when like you're halfway through the day and they're just like so fed up and they just want to go and like have a nap and leave the camera on, camera off. You've got to add that sort of element to them. You've got to give them something else, because otherwise it's just like you lose them completely.
100%, absolutely. And I didn't really ask this before we got on camera. So when you were teaching, did you have any physical time in classrooms when you were doing this, or was it all over Teams?
We came back into classrooms of like half the class just after the start of the January term, but then it was alternating because there was still a lot of people going in and people staying at home. So it was like split in half and half. So when it was hard, because you had to like give presentations and information, but you had to sort of never have your back to the computer because the camera was there. Yeah. And it was like, it felt bad because you were isolating a bunch of people, and not intentionally, but that you couldn't help it. When you naturally go to present something, you make eye contact with about that one part of the wall and you focus there, and then to sort of like hear a voice behind me all of a sudden and be like, oh God, you're there, I forgot, so sorry. And you feel bad for it, because it's just like, and then I feel like teaching people certain things and like talking about things go across better in real life than on chat. Like tones and like the way the conversation's going and the way the mood is, it's hard to sort of have that environment online. Like it's very tense all the time. Yeah. So that generally brought up a few problems, it was hard to sort of like tackle that, it wasn't pleasant, but it is what it was.
It is what it is could be a motto for all of us, really,
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Oh.
I've said it at least 5 times a week and just be like, here's what it is, let's go. Let's get on with it.
He soldiered on, and I really appreciate that. But no, so I guess because I've talked about it with a couple of people who were in the class, I'll very briefly say about the ending to our time in classrooms, because a lot of people were asking like, or not a lot of people asking, like a lot of people can probably remember where they were when lockdown began. We were about 2 days away from going on a trip, where you and me were. Yeah.
That was like it sounds selfish once again, but I was so gutted about not going, and you felt bad for feeling bad about not going, because like obviously this is a horrible situation. Lots of people are dying, but at the same time, I really wanted to go to New York, and it's hard to say that because it's like, but it was heartbreaking, because I remember us sitting there and we were like, if we go, is it going to be worth going there? And it was like, it was a tough decision, and then it was like, oh, we're not going to go.
It was so
kind of glad that was the last day we were in class as well, because if we would have to come in after that, the mood would not have been there. Yeah, there would be no environment in that room.
It was such a quick turnaround though as well, because I think that was a Thursday or something, and then on the Friday we the lockdown was announced, something like that. It was like 1 or 2 days after we.
Yeah, it was very quickly, and it was like, I think that's like the whole thing that's like really confused everyone and like thrown everyone off like the routine, is that every decision that's been made has been very quick. So everyone around us had to adapt to that, and that's why it's been a massive trial run. Like we joked in our course, because we're the first year to do the degree full time instead of part time, that we were guinea pigs for it. And, but everyone, like all the kids, all the students, all the learners, they were all guinea pigs in a sense of can we adapt to this online? And how can we make it like more effective and stuff like that, which was it was I don't know, it's 50-50, and it went really well and then it went really bad, and it was it was a jumble,
of course it was.
Yeah.
Bag of cats, let's call it.
Yeah, bad catcher.
But that's it really. I guess to get your final thoughts would be how much you're looking forward to the proposed idea of getting back to normal in September for classes. How much do you welcome that,
I'm looking forward to the idea of interacting with people and people getting the opportunity to interact with people, but I'm still very nervous. And I've had both my vaccinations. I had my first one quite early on because of health issues and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But even still, I'm very cautious about wearing a mask, and I always wear a mask and that. But one of the girls in our class said, "You don't wear a mask for yourself. You wear a mask to make people around you comfortable."
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you've got to take into consideration, is that you might feel like this is perfectly fine, but for someone else, they're going to struggle. Yeah. And you've got to give them time to sort of adapt and get back on with it, and don't rush them, because it's not what they need. They're excited to see you, you're excited to see them. Just give them time, just give them that moment to breathe, because it's a lot.
Oh,
It's going to be a lot.
There's going to be a big moment. I
remember seeing my nan for the first time. It was like, I missed seeing my nan, but like, I didn't want to go there because I didn't want to get her sick or getting that. And, like, it's worth it. It's worth it in the end. That moment you get to see them, and it's just like, yeah, you got like everything just melts away. You just feel happy again. So I'm looking forward to that feeling with everything. So.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I guess that's my final message to just be cautious, guys, but be excited, because the next year is going to be a lot better than this one by the looks of it. These are all crossed, though. All crossed. But on that note, thank you so much for giving me some of your time. You've been very informative. It's not very often we get someone who's been a student and a teacher in this time frame, It's great. It's very,
it's
very
a bit of a lucky one there.
Yeah.
I had a breakdown though, so you benefit from that. You can benefit from my breakdown. It was great.
That documentary making is. Oh.
Yes.
Oh no.
That's your tagline.
Oh, but thank you so much. Could you tell us your name and what you've been studying, if that's okay?
My name is Matt, and I've been. Oh, it just did the recording in progress thing. Do you want me to?
Go again. That's fine. So, could you tell us your name?
My name is Matt.
Sorry. Yeah. Right. I'll go first, then I'll go for you. Okay. So, could you introduce yourself and what you've been studying, please?
My name is Matt. I've been studying philosophy.
Ah, fantastic. And you're doing this at uni. I believe this has been your first year at university, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been my first year, so it's all I've ever known. I don't know anything about freshers. I don't know anything about being friends with other students. That's completely alien to me, and it feels weird that was even a thing. Like you would meet people face to face that were on your course. That's just completely alien to me. I can't imagine how much that would have helped had that been the case last year.
So from what I'm hearing there, first and foremost, it sounds like it's been a hindrance to you. Do you feel?
Enormously. I hate online learning, and I hate the way that they try and pass it off as if it's as good as in-person learning, because it's just straight up not. You can try all you want, but there's no way. There's no way we're taking it as the same as in-person learning, because one of the big parts of university is it doesn't just enrich you academically, it enriches you as a person. You go to that city, you live in that city, you meet those people, you sit in those lectures, you get that life experience. Absolutely none of that this year.
So yeah, I can absolutely understand that. From my perspective, I'm in my 5th year of uni at the minute, so I've done the yards of. I've been used to what it's like to be in lecture halls and in classrooms and all these things. I can't imagine what it would have been like having the course advertised as one thing and then it being something entirely different. What is that like?
Just really disappointing because they kind of like, obviously the government, we all know at this point they're making it up as they go along. They don't have a clue, and they haven't since it started. They don't now. They don't have a clue. So they're just making it up as they go along, and they're just kind of like telling us what's the case, like as they go along. There's no planning, there's no foresight. We don't know how things are going to go. I think if they'd have actually been honest and say that it would have all been online, we'd have been a bit more forgiving.
Because I know my own experience. Like I didn't know until the week of that it was online, like the week of that course beginning last year. So yeah, very hard to deal with. I must ask. I don't actually know the answer to this. Did you go and stay in halls at all in the last year? Did you actually head over?
Yeah. I lived in halls, but I thought just for my mental health, I spent the majority of my time at home. I gave the first couple of months ago, but it was just especially as the nights are dark and there's nowhere to go, and you don't really. You're friends with your flatmates, but they're not like your close mates, so you can't really do anything other than have surface level conversation. It was just really depressing, and so the better option was just to be at home, even despite paying rent in Leeds. It was still just better to be home.
100%. Has it got any better? We're now in June, I believe. Yeah, we're in June as we're recording this. So you've had your first year pretty much concluded now. Have you been back in to do any lessons? Have you had any notion on that happening in September?
It's funny because in-person learning resumed the week after learning finished.
Oh.
Which was really bizarre. So I'd broken up, and then they said, okay, in-person learning begins now. I'd finished everything. I'd finished all my lectures. I'd finished all my seminars for the year. So that's just really bizarre.
That is odd. Wow. So hopefully for yourself, you'll be back in September, and hopefully you'll get a new dimension to all this learning, because again, you're paying a certain amount of money for a course. You don't have to disclose it here. You're paying for what it said on the tin at the time, right? You're paying to be there. You're there to go into the parties. You're there to go and socialize. You're there to be in a new city, and you've had none of that yet. And I personally sympathize with you, but how do you? And you don't name your university, don't worry about that. Do you feel you've had a lot of support from that institution during this time?
No, I don't think so. I think, there's not much that they could have done for our situation, but also it's just completely like the halls, they'd lock us up, like just being overly strict, you know what I mean? Like, I think everyone was aware of the lockdown rules, but they would keep reminding you of it, and it's like, I'm keeping to them, but don't remind me that that I have to stay in here all year, because it just got really depressing. And I think the word I would use was patronizing. It's just extremely patronizing. We're adults here, we're living away, we're studying degrees, treating us like primary school kids.
That's something I've heard a lot from other people who've been staying in halls as well. Yeah, absolutely. Horrible. So I hadn't really had a perspective on the living arrangements from anyone else. So that is really interesting. Was it really as bad as people were reporting though? Like I know in Salford they actually weren't locking people in, and they had police guards and things like that. Oh my days.
Thankfully, it wasn't that bad where I was, but I can certainly have seen them doing that had there not been such a backlash. Salford. So say if Salford, there wasn't a massive backlash, they were disgraced on the news, I think my uni would have very happily done the same.
Oh dear. It was scary to look at because you know my background. I was actually at Salford only a couple of years ago, so just seeing that was really, really jarring and horrifying, but absolutely. And I guess my final part of this is, how long have you actually got left on your course? So how much time has this eaten away from your course now, would you say?
This has eaten away a third of my course.
Oh my days.
Got two more years. And that entire year was all just exactly what I've described.
Oh my God. Yeah, that is I think to use one of our own terms, that's a bit rats. Like, there's not much you can really do. You and I are in complete understanding about there's not much they could have done better, but the situation is just horrendous. It just is. I just really hope for yourself that you get back into those classrooms and you get the experience you've been missing out on, really.
I hope so. It's really, it's really annoying when, they've got the vaccine. We've had like months of lockdown and they're still not, like, the government just aren't arranging it very well. Like, we've got all the tools that we need to get back on track, and they haven't known they haven't had a clue what they're doing.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think you and I are probably both in agreement that education has been one of the hardest hit sectors in this country, certainly, and maybe across the world. There's no funding, from what I gather. There's not an awful lot of financial support for the unis themselves, hence why we've still had to pay our course fees in full, etc. Oh, it's horrible. It really is. And again, I think everybody watching this will sympathize with your situation, as I do, and hope that it just improves,
Yeah, it can only get better, but then again, we said that a few months ago, didn't we? Like, it can only get better, like, especially after the year we've had. Like, I'm looking forward to end it on an optimistic note. What I've said, I'm looking forward to next year and, getting that experience that like I've missed out on, and maybe, I'll enjoy it more. It'll be more useful to me, and I won't take it for granted. That's for one thing. Yeah,
really. In your experience, you'll have those 2 years, which is wonderful, and you'll thoroughly enjoy them. That second year is usually quite a interesting one for exploring and what have you. So yeah, with me, I've only got 1 year left, so hopefully we're actually back in by September. So we'll see.
I hope so. I hope so.
Yes, thank you for being so candid with me. Thank you for being so open, and yeah, let's hope things improve. Have you got any?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for talking to me.
Absolutely. Before we wind it up, is there any final note you'd like to give about your time thus far?
Yeah, I just think it's just been extremely disappointing. I know, I fully understand that, like, it was necessary. It was necessary to, like, not have us all crammed into lecture halls. That would have been horrendous, but that doesn't mean that we can't complain about it. That doesn't mean that we enjoyed that. So even though we had to be kind of quarantined, that doesn't mean it was good for us. It was still something we didn't like, even if there wasn't really a better option. It was just poorly handled, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. But thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
So yeah, how have you felt about being at university during this past year? And first and foremost, had you been going to uni before that? And how different is it now?
Yeah, for me, like, lockdown was pretty good generally. I mean, like, I don't want to. Obviously, it's awful for a lot of people, but I had a lot of good things happen during lockdown. But for uni-wise, I know people who are on like film courses, so it's like for them it's awful because they can't actually get into groups and make something. They can't even use the camera equipment because obviously, like, it would, pass around COVID infected equipment and stuff. So it sucks for them.
Yeah.
For me, I think the worst thing is like not being able to like meet the people on the course.
Yeah.
So it's harder to, you can't really discuss ideas or anything like that. But otherwise, like I liked not having to commute. But like that's not a problem. That's not a problem for most people, but for me it was, But yeah, I think not being able to see people and just have like, because over Zoom there's always that kind of awkwardness
Yeah.
of like, I'm not sure when to talk, and I can't have that sort of banter with someone, so it's
Yeah.
kind of like that sucks. So and then it's harder to come up with ideas and stuff for scripts and that. My lighting keeps changing.
Oh, don't worry about it. If you haven't got a ring light, you know how it is. How do I say it? Like, for me, I'm going to agree on that because we've been on a script writing course. I don't think that's a secret here. And generating ideas off people has actually been really, really hard. When we've been in breakout rooms and we've been talking with other people, like, I find it so awkward because at the end of the day, you're just looking at a screen. You're not looking at people, you know?
Yeah, it's, I don't know. I do think that as far as like, I don't think they could have done much differently.
Yeah.
I did find I obviously couldn't, like, I didn't look at my emails as much as I could have done, so I didn't know about the like other stuff that was going on in the uni that I probably would have known about in lectures and stuff. But I don't know if I would have done or not. But yeah, it kind of, I think they did what they could, but at the same time, that sort of personal thing, I don't know. Because really I wasn't really happy with the work I've been doing script-wise over the last 2 semesters.
So you feel like your work may have suffered a bit because of this? Do you feel?
I don't know if I can blame the lockdown or just myself, but yeah, I don't know if I just didn't feel inspired or what, but I just felt like I was writing to try and get a grade rather than because, I don't know, but hopefully that'll change in the next few semesters. But
yeah, well, we're looking, personally, you and I are looking at actually being back in classes by September, aren't we? Supposedly, anyway, so.
I think we are, yeah, from what I know.
That'll be interesting, because again, we've been in that class for a year. I don't know if you have, but I personally haven't set foot in that university yet. I haven't met most of those people in person.
Yeah, you know? I have, because I did before my MA, I did uni there for like a John Moore, so I know the lecturers and stuff, but I guess on that end, there's almost something more personal about it because you actually get to talk to the lecturers as well. Yeah. Like, so it's got its benefits as well, I reckon. Yeah. I don't think it's all terrible. Also, but when they tried showing clips and stuff and it started buffering, it was proper and just, oh yeah, it had some benefits, but like, yeah.
The technology's new, and like, I always thought, like, could you imagine, say, if this happened 10 years ago? How would we've done any of the bloody, over Skype? Over like what?
Yeah. Would they have even bothered locking down in the same way they have?
That's something I've been wondering myself, yeah.
That's interesting, actually.
But yeah, I guess the overall takeaway for us then, being in that class, is they've done the best they can. There's a bit of a disconnect there, but we can't blame them for that. And hopefully in the next year we can get back to, yeah.
I guess, there's also the icebreaker of we kind of know each other.
Yeah.
So now we talk in real life, and that's like, wow, that's great. But yeah, I don't know. I ramble.
Oh, don't worry about it. You've been wonderful to speak to for this, mate. So for the audience, could you tell us who you are and what you've been studying for the past few years, if that's okay?
Sure. I'm Callum, and I did an undergraduate degree of drama and creative writing in a university, in a non-specific university in Liverpool, and I'm currently halfway through a screenwriting master's in another nondescript, non-specific university. Yeah. It's kind of where I'm up to right now.
Great stuff. And obviously we're both in the same course. That's no secret. We started this particular level of it at a very particular time after COVID struck. How has that been for you personally? And how did it affect the classes? How did it affect your learning? How did you feel about the past year of study, I guess?
Yeah, well, when COVID kind of picked up, I was like in the middle of my dissertation, as many people were, and fortunately, the resources kind of that were available to me, so the online library, being able to talk to my tutors, were all still there. I was all still able to do that, which is fine. Except I don't do my best work when I'm at home, obviously because of the distractions, and not being able to be fully face to face with people. I think it was an issue, and yeah, I graduated. It was like an online ceremony that the university did over Zoom, and it was nice to kind of see everyone and do that. Yeah. But well, as of this kind of recording now, it's been almost a year since I graduated. I'm going to stop throwing air quotes. It's been almost a year since I graduated, and I've not had an official graduation ceremony. In fact, the one that was due to happen fairly soon has now been postponed.
Yeah.
Again, because I think initially we were told that we were going to have our ceremony instead of kind of July, August 2020, it was pushed back to December, because all of the medical students typically graduate around that time. And then they were like, oh no, it'll be later. And so we were told July 2020, but with the delaying of the lockdown kind of easing, we were then told that it's been postponed again. So if we time it right, we'll graduate with our masters and our undergrad at the same time.
Dual championship, though.
I know, yeah. Let's go for the double.
Well, from my personal experience, I'm on such a weird trajectory. So if I'd done my courses properly and they'd all gone to plan, I'd have graduated 3 times in 5 years. I'd have gone to 3 different graduations. Because of this, I'll have only gone to 1, I reckon. But that's fine. That's fine. And I feel like a big part of that uni experience is getting the gown, getting the cap, as poncy as it looks. I think it is quite a nice experience, you know.
Yeah, people really look forward to it. Like, yeah. I myself, I mean, it's a shame I won't get to see everyone in my course graduate, and I'll be really happy to see them graduate. But I was never really one for, oh, I'm doing it for the pictures and for the cap and gown. Like, I know a lot of people do, and
yeah,
that's cool. But it was never really that for me. I just wanted to be able to see everyone, and mainly for the free meal, mainly for my family being like, oh, we'll go out for a meal, and I'm like, cool, free food, because I'm still a student now, so I'll take all those free meals I can get.
Oh yeah.
But it is odd because I went to uni late. I left school at the right time and did all that.
Yeah.
And then I went straight to college and did a performing arts diploma at college because look at me, of course I did. I'm very annoyingly theatrical. And then I didn't know if I wanted to go to uni yet. In my second year of college, people were starting to do their UCAS stuff, and I didn't know if I wanted to, so I just waited. Yeah. And so I think if I'd gone at the right time, as you have, I would have graduated at the right time. And it's very odd because when you think about it now, like looking back, there's like, graduation ceremonies now just seem ridiculous.
Exactly.
Being in such massive groups of people just seems terrifying. And I don't know whether that is to do with what is being called post-pandemic stress disorder, because I'm also a blog writer for a mental health company.
All right.
And I was asked to do a blog on that, and the more I looked into it, like the more it made sense. Like you're going back, you're leaving what you have been told is the only safe place in the world for the past year to go out into the world again. It's terrifying. I kind of used an analogy like the normal world is a swimming pool and lockdown is a ladder leading to a diving board, because eventually we're gonna have to jump back in. And I assume after the summer and we're back in uni, and if they say we're allowed to go back in September, I feel quite a lot of us will be thinking that. So the kind of almost the pressure of and the anxiety of being told like it's okay, you can go back and see people again might be tough for some people. I mean, it was ages before I don't need to shield for any reason. I'm not I don't have any problem with my immune system as far as I'm aware. But I was terrified of going out and doing anything because of what I've been hearing, what I've been seeing. So I assume when we go back to uni, there might be a little bit of that lingering, and I might have some issues kind of seeing large groups of people again.
Oh, absolutely. Again, no secrets here. You and I tried to meet a couple of people from our class when it was viable to do so, and even that was a little daunting, I must admit. Yeah,
like you wanted to just like hug everyone and be like, oh my god, like cough in their faces, but you just, I think the whole day there was just this air of like, is this okay? Like, are you okay with me being this close? And it was an odd day, but it was very nice. It was so lovely to meet people.
Yeah.
And also that's a thing, like the fact that we're halfway through this degree and we've not.
That's what I was about to talk about.
Yeah, we've not met people. I mean, there are a couple people from from my undergrad that I knew.
Yeah.
But most like 90%, 95% of the people on the course, like I've not met before, and I'd love to meet. I'm really excited to meet.
Oh yeah.
But it was so odd.
Yeah, I guess there's almost an added excitement then, like that we wouldn't have had otherwise, because now we know enough about someone to know they're good and they're cool, and now we get to actually meet them. But I think for me, I've only set foot in that nondescript university once, and that was to meet our tutor, but about half a year before we actually started.
Oh.
So for me, I don't even really know what our building looks like. I don't know what our facilities are. I don't know any of that yet. And again, we've been here for a year now, and that's really odd to me.
Yeah, there's a good chance that you might not know where you're going when you show up, which is ridiculous. I mean, I hope it goes without saying that, like, when we do meet up, if you just come find me and I'll just show you everything you need to know.
Oh, thank you.
But
mate.
imagine if you didn't have that. Imagine if you were just expected to find. Imagine if let's say you didn't live in Liverpool.
Yeah.
And it was time to go back to in-session teaching, and you didn't know, you might not know where the building is itself, and then you definitely won't know where you're going. It's just crazy. It's one of those things that, like planking, in about 10 years we'll look back and be like, that was wild, that was insane.
But yeah, I don't think so. Even for us, it's terrible. But can you imagine, say, people who are in the final year of high school, the final year of anything? How would you explain that to someone in years to come? That you just didn't go. You just didn't do any of it. I'm almost lost for words on how unique this is.
Yeah, and it's also something that everyone in the world is also experiencing. So in a way, we're not. Everyone, I guess, has over the lockdown felt isolated.
Mm-hmm.
But it's comforting to know that everyone is also going through that too.
Yeah.
But I, as a former drama student, knowing how important it is to be in session and be present, this must have absolutely ruined so many people's experiences. Like, the main reason I went to this nondescript, non-specific university in Liverpool for its drama course was a certain module that it does, and no other uni that I know of does that module, and it's very intense, very hands-on, very kind of professional, and I was really excited to do it, and I'm lucky that I got the chance to do it. I mean, there were some kind of caveats, but that had nothing to do with COVID, and that couldn't be helped. Like, there weren't enough of a certain kind of group of student. Like, there were normally we'd be paired with students from other years, but there weren't enough of that, of like there weren't enough first years, so we weren't able to do that, so we had to change it a little bit, but it still was a complete experience, and I'm so glad that I got to do it. But I just feel so bad for the people who were going into that third year and were obviously not able to do that. I'm not sure what they did. There's a couple of people I could probably put you in contact with, because I knew they were going into that. I knew some second years at the time.
Yeah.
And I think one of them that I knew, they've graduated and they've got a first, so that's fantastic. I just want to know how that module was then.
Jesus.
Yeah.
How do I ask this as well? Like, can you imagine? But we're very lucky in a sense. We're on a purely academic course, to be honest with you. But I jumped as well. I jumped from a fully like hands-on course in media, and I can't even picture how that would be. How do you get cameras? How do you go filming? You know, how do you do any of these things without being in contact with people? You know,
it's odd because it's forced creatives to adapt, and there's nothing more a writer likes, like us, than to sit in a dark room and not talk to people, and like Phantom of the Opera, just like toiling away, no one sees them. I've never seen Phantom of the Opera, and so that's kind of okay for writers. I mean, we can still talk, but in my last year, my undergrad, there was a module that revolved almost entirely around kind of collaborative working. You would kind of bring in, say, the first 10 pages of your work, and you'll kind of print out some copies so people can read it, and then it's on the board, and you kind of assign parts to everyone, and everyone kind of reads, and you get a feel for what it sounds like. You can write down in your script where you get laughs, or where you can see people like reacting to it. And there was nothing like it. There is nothing like it. Working like that with a group of people who, for half an hour, are all working towards the same end.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel like it's just your work, because I don't think the best quality of work won't come from purely soul working. It comes from collaborative working, and you're still able to do that over Zoom, but I would argue it is just not the same. It is not the same as sitting in a room with a group of people who are all bouncing ideas off of each other. No one's going, like, no two people try to talk at the same time, and it's like an
that's the most awkward part. Absolutely.
If I never have to say the words "you're on mute" again, it'll be too soon. It will be too soon, my friend. It's just but yeah, nothing beats that kind of collaborative spirit. And afterwards, people give their kind of opinions and say, I've had so many pieces of fantastic advice that really help shape the script based on those sessions. And I feel like it's not just the kind of collaborative effort, because you still get that over Zoom, and the online, the VLE, the virtual learning environment, is still there for us to access and to read each other's work. And during those Zoom sessions, we obviously still give feedback, but I feel there's a different energy to Zoom than to real life, because everyone is very much present and very much in the room. And also, when you're in a box this big and you know that people will be constantly looking at you, and you're constantly looking at yourself, it is exhausting.
There is a big fear of it, but you'll recall, like, during a lot of it, I would try and find ways to just keep my camera off, but whilst everyone else is talking, I didn't like it at all.
No, it's so odd, because you know that you're there constantly, and if you look away for a moment, or you're kind of thinking about something else, and it's so plainly obvious. And it's not like while I'm in session in person, I don't concentrate, but concentrating for 3 hours straight with about a 5-10 minute break in the middle, it's so tiring. You're so kind of emotionally and physically and socially exhausted. And like the sessions the sessions we have, like, one day a week, and we'll end around 9 o'clock. And all I want to do afterwards is just kind of switch off and kind of just do nothing, because I feel like it feels like a performance.
Yes, that's it.
There's not many other ways I can really describe it. It feels like it is a performance of I am playing the focused, dedicated student, because you can't break that, because of how kind of aware you are of the fact that you're being recorded, you're being watched, you're being noticed.
That's really interesting. That you're the second person to compare it to a performance, actually, that I've been speaking to. Yeah, I feel like that resonates with a lot of people. For me, though, on the whole idea of Zoom, the only one positive I can find of it is the quality of guest lecturers we've had. Honestly.
Yes. Yeah, because we've had people who live in, like, the Faroe Islands. We've had people who live in Germany, and lots of people who wouldn't be able to take a day to travel, or more for some people, just for a couple of hours. I absolutely agree. There have been so many fantastic guest speakers, because we've been able to just email them. The lecturers will just be like, "Oh, we're doing this, but can you just come and talk to us about this project you're working on, or your job?" And the quality has just been completely astounding. No, I absolutely agree with that. Yeah.
And now for that, I do feel like Zoom should stick around on that particular end to maybe assign a day when we're not in class. Just say, be on Zoom at this time if you want to speak to this person. I think that would be massively beneficial.
Yeah, because they've been doing that. They've been emailing us and saying, "Oh, we've got like this guest speaker this afternoon, as you say, not in session time. If you want to come along, just join this, follow this link." So as much as when when everything is kind of back to normal, I'd like to see the Zoom servers, like, burn to the ground. I think just for that reason, I think there's so many kind of reasons to keep it around, and just as long as I don't have to do a Zoom quiz again.
Oh my days, no.
Nightmare.
Yeah, but there's so many. The thing is, the technology was here, but it's still very new, and like you'd see it in that sometimes videos wouldn't buffer on the share screens. You'd see like the presentations just wouldn't work at all, and I think even the tutors clocked onto that eventually because they moved more towards going to breakout rooms and talk type thing. And I think in a few years this would be brilliant. But I also put this to a lot of other people. Can you imagine if this had happened, say, 10 years ago? if we had to do our online learning in 2010?
We'd be snookered. I think we really would. Like, even, I mean, there was Skype.
Yeah.
But then I guess companies would just be scrambling to make their, companies would be scrambling to make their version.
Yeah.
Of what Zoom would eventually become. So it would be really difficult. But I think kind of would have been okay, I suppose. Not as good as kind of Zoom has accessible as Zoom has made it, but like imagine if it was like 2002 or something and we'd have to do this.
Dial up. Oh my god.
No.
Oh,
No, we'd be hearing the dial-up tone in our sleep. That god awful noise, sitting up in the night in like a cold sweat. It's like, get off the phone.
Oh, it would be horrible.
Yeah.
But no, all in all, I guess this past year, students deserve commending. We all deserve knighthoods. Let's end on that, shall we?
Yeah. Like a lot of people had to work from home, and the thing is, we put in I think it's fair to say students put in a substantial amount of effort for something that they are paying for.
Yeah.
We do get like you get your maintenance grant and stuff like that, but that's mainly the money that we get so we can live. And so we're not getting a monthly 5-digit salary for a yearly 5-digit salary for doing this. Like, we've been putting in a lot of late nights, hard work. Yeah, I think it would be nice to just kind of have it said that you've done a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And again, I think we will probably get that eventually, and we will get our graduation. I think probably by the time you and I graduate from here at this nondescript place, we will have a cap and gown ceremony. Because I think in the next year at least, touch wood, we're recording this in June, so hopefully there hasn't been another U-turn.
Yeah, or another wave or another lockdown.
Yeah.
Who knows? Like, it's just I would like to take this opportunity to say that the government has been absolutely shambolic in its handling of this pandemic.
It's right. Yes, they've been awful.
You look at other places like, I think, for example, Singapore, I believe, has like a similar population density to us, and they've done just so well. I know New Zealand is like the example where it's like they've done so well, but also they have a small population. Regardless, their Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, she's been so on it with if there's any sign of cases, or I think they've had about 20 deaths.
Oh, wow. During
the whole pandemic. They've just, as opposed to our current, I think it's like 125,000 people have died in the UK because of it.
Yeah. Because
the government has just put the economy over the people.
Yeah.
It was the word of our Prime Minister, who literally said, take it on the chin and let it spread through the population.
Mm-hmm.
So what is there to say other than it's been an absolute shambles from start to finish?
Mm-hmm. And that extends to like the government's attitude towards education, maybe more specifically towards our area of media and stuff like that.
And the arts, because they just don't care about the arts.
They don't. Yet you will notice what has kept everyone going during this lockdown. I would argue that it's Netflix. I'd argue that it's Disney Plus. I'd argue that it's probably HBO Max for those who can afford that wonderful luxury. All these things have kept people going more than anything else. BBC, all of it, right? And yet there's still no value placed in it, even in this vital time. And I don't understand it for the life of me.
No, I wish I could. Like they've imagine, as you say, like imagine if this was about 10 or 20 years ago, where we didn't have Netflix.
Yeah.
Well, in its current form, like Netflix existed like as a DVD rental service. I think I remember.
Yeah.
And I mean, Disney Plus certainly didn't exist. HBO Max, I'm sure, didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And so people would be stuck in their homes without the higher kind of quantity of media, media to consume. And so to look at that and say, wow, God, this has kept so many people sane, and then to think, you know what would be really funny is if we cut all funding to arts programs in schools, so that people who maybe want to grow up to be writers, directors, actors, technicians would not ever have that chance. It's horrible, and lest we forget the frankly astonishingly hard work put in by staff across the NHS and essential workers, people who work in supermarkets. Have they had a pay rise? No. Nurses have had a 1% pay rise?
1%.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm sure that really helped when they were constantly working horrible hours.
But don't worry, Callum, they got free parking that they should have got anyway.
Yeah, and claps. Let's not forget that they were being paid in claps. Yeah, I think the NHS could raise a lot of money if they offered, if they sold tickets to punch Matt Hancock in the face. Yeah, the funding problem to the NHS would just vanish. My partner, she works for the NHS, and it isn't just in kind of one sector of the NHS that the lack of funding is apparent. It's in all sectors. My partner works in like a kind of testing and analysis lab, and their computers are ancient. There's always, at least once a day, one of them is broken or more. They don't have proper chairs to sit on, for example, and she was having horrible pains in her back because she wasn't able to sit properly in an actual chair. So it is not just the like a single sector of the NHS. It is woefully underfunded. It has been for
well over a decade. Let's not lie here.
Yeah, the Tories got in 2010, and it's not been getting any better since then. Yeah, so Zoom. Yeah.
I must thank you for being so open about that. I've been waiting for someone to bring up this utter shambles of a leadership system, I guess, and how that has affected all of us.
If you give me like a slither of a chance to talk about this government and its many, 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 many shortcomings, I will be here for hours. And it's just, we are living in the worst timeline
Exactly, we really are. I don't think that reference has ever been more prevalent, you know. And I just hope that the next year returns us to something better, especially in our playing, you know, especially to the NHS, of course. All of that.
Yeah, and even despite the kind of the lack of funding the NHS has had, the vaccine rollout in the United Kingdom has just been incredible, which is nothing to do with the government. It's all the NHS, all of it. It's been so on it because of the NHS. So I think we're in a better position than I imagine some of us might have thought.
Yeah.
Because of how well the vaccine rollout is going. And is it like anyone over the age of 18 now can book to get their vaccine?
That's exactly it. I've got mine today on the day of this recording. Woo! So, whoa! Absolutely fantastic. I'm gonna wrap this up now because we really have we've veered, and I'm fine with it. But I feel like we've said all we can about the uni side of it. So absolutely, this has been very informative. Thank you for being so open with me, and thank you for giving me experience. Yeah, thank you.